Connecticut. So that's a nice guest to have with us today.
Yeah.
And we're going to start here in about 1 minute.
I want to say something to you guys.
I can hear Dr. Taylor there in the background.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Maurice, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Very nice to see and hear from you, sir. Thank you.
Very good. I see you didn't stay retired long.
I'm still working on it. Yeah, I have to work out a few kinks.
Very good.
This has been such a marvelous project to work on, though, Maurice. It's just terrific. And Cynthia's been just a joy to work with. So good people, good connections.
Fantastic. Good to see you, Larry.
Thank you, sir.
Stephanie, Buddy, Christy, can you all hear us?
Yes, I can hear.
Terrific.
This is Buddy.
I see that Wendy has started our recording. Terrific. Oh, thank you for putting in the chat line there. I'm watching where folks are coming from. And nice representation across the state. Terrific. So I suspect as the morning goes, we'll have more folks joining us from different places. We've got them from vehicles, visiting family, all over the place. So it's always nice to get this gathering together, and so appreciate you joining us today. My name is Larry Reagan. I'm on the program team for MOLLI, the Maryland Online Learning Institute. As you probably know, we're going into our 3rd year of delivery in 2019 in June. And at the top of the chat, you will find a link that Doug has posted there. If you're interested in learning more about MOLLI, there's great information on there. And many of our members today on the program are participants of the MOLLI Institute. MOLLI, of course, is sponsored by Maryland Online, and Wendy tells me that a number of years ago they were looking at a way to sort of make an impact in the field, and the identification of helping to support and build up new leaders to take on the role of advancing online learning came up, and that was the birth of MOLLI. Doug, as you all know, probably Doug Gray has been the director of the program, and has just been a terrific resource to work with and guidance throughout the program. And so this webinar series came up as an idea of a way to do 2 things, really, was to keep the MOLLI community connected after the face-to-face events. And the second is to do a little deeper dive on some topics that we, regardless of where you are in your leadership path, whether you're a novice or whether you're quite advanced, there are issues and challenges that come up that we continually have to work on. And today's topic of not only implementing change, but serving as a leader in that process of managing change is an important one for all of us. And so we're really pleased to have Cynthia Brown-Levis with us today. Cynthia is the director of Morgan Online, part of Morgan State University. And she works with a colleague of mine, Dr. Taylor, Maurice Taylor, and they're doing some terrific things there at Morgan State. Cynthia is very excited about the direction of the group and the vision of Dr. Taylor, and so she's going to share a little bit about that with us today. The way we're going to do this webinar will be, we've got quite a good turnout, so you may see more and more folks coming on. I see that you've already muted your mic, which is appreciated, so we don't, if you happen to do typing and all, we won't hear that in the background. Also, the way that Zoom works is if you're speaking, for example, then that's the audio or the video that will come up to the forefront. So if you can mute for us, that's terrific. It helps us all. However, we don't want to completely mute your participation. So you will see a chat box toward the corner of your screen, and we would welcome input and dialogue as the session is going on. Doug has agreed to monitor that. He can both respond to it as well as collect ideas and bring them back to the larger group for communications, or Doug might ask you to unmute and share your idea with us as well. So thanks, Doug, for serving in that role for us. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and take you over to the presentation and introduce Cynthia and ask her to walk us through. The way we thought we would do today's session is Cynthia's pulled together and coalesced a few ideas about this concept of implementing change regardless of where you are in your leadership role. And she's got some terrific examples and stories to share. And then we'd like to open it up for some dialogue after her presentation and maybe do a little deeper exploration of some of these topics. So with that, Cynthia, can I turn it over to you?
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I am Cynthia Brown-Leviste. I am the Director of Morgan Online, but I also currently serve as the Vice President of Maryland Online. And also I served in MDLA, and I'm currently a past VP of MDLA. Next slide. I just want to say a little bit about Morgan State University. It's Maryland's preeminent public urban research university. Its Carnegie classification is doctoral university's high research activity. We are historically Black college or university, but in 2019, not only are we an HBCU, we are a multiracial university with a population of 25% undergraduate students are not African American and 30% of graduate students are not African American. We are located in Baltimore, Maryland, and we have an FTE of approximately 7,000 students. Next. Today we will discuss organizational structure, recognizing change opportunities. We have some strategies to make you efficient, hopefully, as an effective leader, regardless of your position. We'll also discuss and define multiple strategies for leading from where you are. Next. Agent of change, where are you? Well, first, let's take a minute out and think about how our organization is organized in terms of the management of online programs. Are you centralized, where everything regarding online is under your tree structure, from your services to the actual management of programs and the resources? Or is it more decentralized, where it's spread out through each individual school? Are you using online program management to help you implement your programs? Or perhaps you're a mixture of above. At Morgan State, I would describe us as more decentralized. Morgan Online has the authority to help programs build and the resources to build them, but the day-to-day management of those programs come from the schools and the departments. And the way that the structure works is that an online program coordinator for a specific program will report either to the dean directly or a chair. Next slide. Well, it's important to know where are you in your organization as it relates to online programs. And I just put a list of all the people that I know of, and there may be some additional ones in your organization that you would call agent of change, but it ranges from students, instructors, librarians, student service managers. On the right-hand side, you see some of my agents of change. And these are all people who participate in online programs, either from being an instructor or an instructional designer. And this just happened to be our picture at last year's Regional Quality Matters up in Towson. Next, is important to know, what authority do you have regarding online programs? What is your lane? How are you limited in your authority, or what authority do you have? Third, what resources do you have to enact change? Next slide. So the overall message is, when you know where you are in your structure, who has what authority in the structure, and who has what resources, then that puts you in the best position to be an agent of change. Next. All right, we're going to examine some barriers to change. And many of you all are familiar with these barriers. Barrier one, resistance can come from many sources and can take the form of outright belligerence to even passive aggressive behavior. And there's just a list of some of the things, we probably encounter, down to one that's more societal in its nature, but related to online. Many of you may recognize the old Motorola flip phone. And so in this very quick story, we actually had an instructor that was teaching computer architecture, and phones had moved on to smartphones, but the instructor was still using the flip phone. And they got a knock on the door from a student, and the student pitched having a smartphone. And so in that instant, the instructor had to decide, am I going to move forward with my students or remain where I was? And so the instructor decided to move into the new world with the students. So the whole thing about working with change is that you have to recognize that change takes place all the time, and you're making an active decision whether you're going to stay behind or keep moving forward with everyone in time. Next. A second barrier can be limited resources, such as equipment, personnel, or limited budget. So as many of you are aware, you can have ad campaigns easily, 75, 150K or more, but your budget is 7K. Another barrier to change is fear of the unknown. I've been doing this since 2000. Why should I teach online? And online courses will take away my students from my face-to-face courses. Next slide. Here's a list of some of the barriers that we faced in terms of our change. We had a 10-year-old faculty handbook, has been touched in years. We had lots of online courses, but very few degree programs. We have face-to-face teaching for residential campus and not a lot of teaching for online. And we have few trained online instructors and little invested interest in online teaching and its policies. Next. So let's take a moment out and have a reflective question. Is your unit and organization poised for change? One of the things to remember is that in the end, it's your vision that gives sight and action to change. And this is a little bit of a trick question. Is your unit and organization poised for change? Well, the fact that there is a director of online, or in some organizational structures, a VP of distance ed, is already a sign that your unit is poised for change, because they've made that first step. And to get that type of position, someone at a higher level had to push to get that position. Next. So we have some opportunities for change, and just have them listed here. One of the things you can take a look at is developing your strategic plan for online. And that's your vision. Where do you want your online programs to be in the next 3 to 5 years? What resources do you plan to bring to bear for those things? So if you don't plan, you can't be. Next is compliance with policies and laws. So here gives you an automatic opportunity for change in the structure, because you have to comply to the law. ADA compliance, FERPA, and SARA are some examples. In the instance of it's a law, it gives you an opportunity to speak directly to your manager, find your legal staff, and move forward. Third, provide and encourage education of change agents regarding online courses and programs. We do a lot of encouragement of education. We definitely use Quality Matters as a tool to move us forward in our online courses and programs. Then learn from your network. Don't stay by yourself. There is a network automatically there of people that you can resource. And some of those things are listed: the MOL forum, the MDLA conferences, events. The OLC conferences and the QM success stories provide you opportunity to learn how people are done. In our instance, one of the key things that we did was MOL actually had a managed program with Dr. Buddy Muse, and that gave every school in the state the opportunity to hear directly from him what is the latest in strategies for open educational resources. Next, listen to your stakeholders, your students, your faculty, staff, as well as community and corporate. Keep your ears open. Anyone can, at any point in time, can bring you a good idea. Next. Here were some of our opportunities for change. We had a new organizational structure. Our division is approximately, I'd say, 5 or 6 years old. But someone had to have the idea to have a division. So that was an opportunity for our change and growth. And in that division, approximately 5 years ago, under that structure, they developed the Office of Morgan Online and hired me and provided me with 2 budgets. Also, what we do is, because we are decentralized, we build relationships across campus. So one of those, many of you know Karen Rubenstein, who heads up our instructional design and technologies on campus. She's one of my close working partners. And I also built relationships within each of the schools that have online programs with the chairs and the online coordinators. Then our next opportunity is the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. We had recently our 10-year visit, our self-study. And so preparing for that also provided the impetus for change on campus, because we knew exactly what we had to strive for. At the bottom, you'll see a couple of the results of us utilizing these opportunities. One of them is that we had an opportunity to have an online and hybrid course policy now, which includes quality matters and a direction for training for our online and hybrid instructors. And then right now, I'm currently speaking to you from the Panopto Record and Go laboratory located in the library of Morgan State University. So that is an opportunity. Panopto became a part of our learning structure, and then the technology on campus expanded out to give us this Record and Go studio. Next. So in the strategies for change, you want to ignite all change agents with education. You want to attend conferences and events to learn and meet other professionals. You want to change your language of champions, involve all with your strategic plan and events. And actually, my champion is here today. That's Dr. Maurice Taylor. He went to OLC's conferences and their training for online leadership. And so he serves as a champion in terms of everything online here, from building policies and programs. Then you want to leverage MOL and other online professionals to influence the direction of online faculty, VPs, and the president. At all times, you want to keep your lines of communications open to your students and faculty to receive input and growth. Next. Another strategy is that you must speak power to truth. You must speak truth to power and resistance. One important thing to keep in mind is that the market for online students and students in general has changed. Face-to-face is no longer face-to-face anymore, as 30% of all students take 1 or more online courses in a year. So face-to-face is really more hybrid. Our face-to-face students are seeking online as well as our online students. You want to invest in faculty, online skills, and competencies. You want to train, you want to provide online teaching training, quality assurance, and administrative tasks. And you also want to gather your tools for online. So you want to buy and purchase products and services such as ReadSpeaker, Panopto, to comply with ADA and other government laws and policies, and also provide the alignment with your accreditation policies for online programs. Next. So some of our strategies for change is active participation, professional training in Maryland Online, Quality Matters, OLC. You want to collaborate vertically. So every direction, up, down, left, right, you want to be communicating with people about your goals and your aspirations and your strategies, your direction for online. And then for us, we had the Johnny Appleseed effect. So we did have incentives and training to share and the funding to support conference attendance and travel. Our major funding outside of the state funding is Title III funding, and we use that to purchase equipment and licenses to move Morgan Online forward. Next. And this is just an example of what happened from our strategies, again, over the last 5 years in particular, but also reaching far back to 2011. Quality Matters has been a strategy for us from 2011 up to when I started around 2014, but it was more institutionalized where the person did the training on campus. Once it started in 2015, we moved to seek our training directly from Quality Matters, and using the Title III funding, instructors are sent there. So what you're seeing is a huge boost in the number that instructors are changed. I mean, the number of instructors that have been taught Quality Matters. And also part of this is because our instructional design staff is small. I realize the model varies from school to school to school, where at some schools, they have an instructional design staff. At our school, we have a instructional designer. All right, next. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your time and open this up for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Cynthia. I have a list of about 32 questions, but
Okay, that's great. We got plenty of time. That's good.
I'm going to resist, and I'm going to go back to our video so we can see you as we're speaking.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, good. So, if you don't mind, I do have a couple, but there's one that sort of jumped out at me that I suspect we may find ourselves facing in different times through our careers. So you're fortunate at Morgan State to have a leader like Dr. Taylor, who has a vision, who has really set out to inform himself, educate himself, stay on that front end. That you're fortunate that way. And he's been, as you use the term, a champion for online, which has great evidence then in the growth of your programs. I'm wondering, though, if you're in a situation, and some of us, and we may be in different situations over time, but how do you manage change and advance change when the next level, or perhaps two levels up, is resistant? Is the barrier, becomes the barrier to advancing? What can we do in those scenarios to keep things moving forward, recognizing we may not advance as much as we'd like until that barrier, whatever, resigns, retires, moves on?
Well, I mean, you have a couple of ways to get through that. So if you're not as lucky as I was, one of the things that you can do is invite experts to your campus, because sometimes they may not be willing to hear you, but you can use MOL as a tool and bring in their experts and set up a meeting and say, these are the experts coming in statewide. They're going to share with you what they know. Another doorbuster, absolutely positively, are those laws. You have to comply. So that does give you an opportunity to speak to your boss and say, ADA is a law, and I see these ways respective to online that we are not complying. And so, suggest to your manager, you and I, we should speak to our legal counsel, because we don't want to be in violation of any of those laws.
I love the way you set the table about these opportunities for change. Some of these will happen to us, but also we can sort of cause some of them. You used the example of, say, Middle States accreditation. So there's an external group coming in, doing an assessment, and going to give you some feedback. Instead of that becoming a crisis of, oh my goodness, you know, we're not going to get accreditation, you talk about using that as a positive energy, if you will, to begin implementing that change.
Right. Right. It did. I mean, I think it is important, and I'm actually kind of happy that accreditation exists because it gives schools an opportunity to step back and also learn what is 2019 versus, like you saw in my slides, 10 years ago, and what adjustments should we make as an institution to, you know, be 2019 versus 10 years ago.
Right, right, right. Good, thank you. So let me hear from the group here. Questions, thoughts for Cynthia that we can gain some of her insights on as she's managing change. Cynthia, as folks are formulating their ideas, I wanted to tease out another, I don't know, dimension of this that I've observed. And that is, you know, we sometimes hear this terminology of sort of being on the leading edge of change and being on the bleeding edge of change. You know, and to my mind, the bleeding edge always meant more risk, right? More potential failure, but you also have the opportunity to, you know, sort of hit it big, to be the first one to market. Leading edge means, in my mind, that you're watching what's happening on that bleeding edge. You're not quite out there, but you're determining where and when to enter into that that change. Have you had that experience as well?
Well, I mean, there are so many facets to online. On some of the things, we actually were leading and bleeding. So Panopto, we started pretty much when Panopto began, you know, somewhere around 2008, 2009. You know, Karen had an idea, we want to capture video. And I think it does help to be closer to leading or bleeding edge, because sometimes to get to success, you have to be willing to take the risk. And in the case of that, we did take the risk. We started with that, and then the magic happened. It started in engineering, and someone started using it, and then others and others, and you know, so you have to be willing to plant that seed. You can't be afraid to plant that seed, and hopefully it will grow. And even to the type of tool where students fell in love with it, because now if I missed a word or two my instructor said, I can play it back as many times as I want. I can take this recording into office hours and say, but at 2 minutes, 5 seconds, you said X. What did you really mean? So, you know, to grow, you have to take some risk.
Yes.
I don't know if you necessarily have to be bleeding edge, but I think it helps to learn and be leading edge.
Right.
With some of the things that we've done, I'd say we were leading edge. With some things like open educational resources, we were not the first adopters. So there can be some advantages on that side too, because we don't have to learn all the lessons. Many of the lessons have been learned. So we can start from the point of, these are the lessons learned, and not go through that. So there's pluses and minuses to leading and bleeding edge.
You know, I love you using that example, though, of OER as a change initiative, and the fact that Morgan State, or in our case at Penn State when I was there, we were not the ones out there way out front trying and testing, but that was a position we watched. We monitored, we participated, so we knew kind of what was happening. And then at some point, which I'm sure you did as well, you then decide, okay, now I understand enough of it. It's important to our institution. Now we make our step into it. Is that what you did at Morgan State as well?
Well, I mean, being a part of MOL has really helped. So, you know, as you know, we have a representative on our board from UMUC. And so over the years, if you remember, they dove in really fast.
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
And so they've been willing to share with me over the years some of the strengths of coming in first and some of the challenges of coming in first. And so now I can take those lessons as I get ready to implement it.
Sure.
Larry?
Thank you. Yes, Doug.
April has a question. She's been working towards getting a grad certificate in online instruction, and she wants to know about what sort of efforts are being made to get universal online instructing going. Because every one of our institutions seems to have, narrowly defined, and you've got to do the training for Morgan at Morgan, at Montgomery College at Montgomery. Well, April says she's a little shy. She'd like us to try and help her out with that question.
Yeah, I think it's more of like, so I earned my postgrad certificate, which led to my doctoral studies. But when I go to apply to online teaching positions, as you said, there's resistance from existing face-to-face instructors. There's always that you have to get certified through us. You have to take the class through us to meet their needs. And it's honestly learning the same exact thing I learned in my postgrad certificate and paid a lot of money for. So, what is the ideal universal training for online teaching?
Well, I mean, I think when I look at online teaching and learning, there are some parts that are universal, but there are some parts that are specific. So for instance, the way that we operate is we use quality matters training. And so we've had instructors leave and take that training with them. It's more portable. We've had instructors come to us with their certificates, and we accept those certificates. I think sometimes when you're bringing in credentials, it helps to talk to whoever is doing the evaluation of it, because I think many times, even down to some of the basic tools like the LMS and some of these other tools we talk about, there is a lot of similarities. So, I mean, one of the things that we do is that when an instructor comes to us, we actually have an evaluation. They're sent over the Karen who has all these years of instructional design and instructional technologies, and they do a review of the training to see how equivalent it is to what we want.
Yeah, that's a great strategy, Cynthia, because you're not, to April's point, you're not sort of forcing the individual to go through it all over again, but you're also doing that assessment, which I've always thought is a great idea. We don't do that, by the way, of, determining, having someone like Karen determine the faculty member's comfort level and their skill and their competency, figuring out then where they may need a little bit of help and support, or I should say maybe or then bringing them on to Morgan State system. And by the way, this is how we do this aspect of it. And this is one thing I've seen are standards of performance for faculty. So you have some sense of what is to be expected. If there are metrics, for example, turnaround time or things like that, they may differ slightly from institution to institution, and you'll want to know that for whatever school you might be working for. So I really like that idea. I like that strategy. Doug, do you have any other thoughts or inputs on that?
Well, I would like to say that I think that we've faced that through the distance learning environment all along. There is a real situation that we've never gotten over, which is, it wasn't created here, so it can't meet our standards, and we deal.
I have an option worth mentioning.
It's also. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maurice.
Well, thank you, Wendy. First of all, it's good to see you. A couple of things with respect to the question of how we might have a more universal online training. It occurs to me that most of us are members of SARA, and as a regional organization, I'm aware that there are a number of these regional online organizations that help us make certain that we don't have to go state to state. So it might be time, Wendy, and those of us who are in SARA, to put that on the agenda about how do you now do regional accreditation. That is, if it is acceptable to SARA, then it will be acceptable across the universe of SARA institutions. The other thing I wanted to go back to the point, Larry, that you raised with Cynthia about what resistance, how do you kind of handle that resistance if you don't have top-down support. I think Cynthia has done a marvelous job. I feel fortunate to have her in her position, but I will say that even at Morgan, notwithstanding the success that we have had, we always face resistance. There's always, if you have a vision, you're gonna get some pushback to that. I just want to say that I thought from my vantage point, among the key opportunities for change for us was middle states. We looked at middle states coming. We had about 3 years from the start of our self-study to look at opportunities where we could say to the provost and to the president, hey, you don't want middle states coming on our campus looking at this antiquated this and this antiquated that. So I just wanted to, what I would offer is simply to reiterate what Cynthia has said, and that is look to the levers that you have in your institutions. They may vary from institution to institution, but we all have these levers that we can pull. And so I just wanted to add that.
And Maurice, I might add that sometimes those external levers, maybe oftentimes, are more powerful or could be more powerful than the internal ones, because they know you too well, you know. But now you've got another organization or accreditation, whatever, that brings a total different level of attention that needs to be paid.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mary, I have a couple more points from the chat room. Stephanie questions in the new era of mixed technology about job security for instructors when students can use voice and capture and perhaps cut a statement and make it seem like something that they didn't really mean. What sort of job security do we have in that situation? And then Adam pointed out, as far as the training, he took the COAT training, from Maryland Online, the Certified Online Adjunct Training, which has now gone over to Quality Matters. I don't know where they are with it, but that is a possibility for the question of universal training for instructors.
I have an option for the universal question. This is Tom Cantu.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, so I've been in charge of the training of faculty for teaching online and blended courses at Montgomery College about 2002. And in the early years, I realized that I didn't want the training to become a bottleneck. So I implemented the option to either do the training is a 7-week fully online course that guides faculty planning and building their own courses. But for those with experience, they can either do an accelerated independent study and speed through the modules on their own, or for those faculty who are really experienced, they can test out of the training. And that was possible because the training was competency-based. A long time ago, we created a set of criteria that eventually mimicked or included the 23 essential quality matters standards, as well as some other standards to make sure that they're following the course template that we use here at Montgomery. But anyone who goes to the training plans the entire course, the syllabus, the schedule are ready to go for the target semester, and they build one module that is ready to teach, meets the 23 essential quality matters standard, and then becomes a model and a set of page templates for building the rest of the course. That's the training. How they get there is entirely up to the speed or competence level of the professor. Most take the training. Some people do the accelerated independent study. Some people are fast enough, they test out, they build a module of the course they're scheduled to teach anyway, so there's no wasted effort, and ta-da, they're done, and they're already that far ahead on the course they're scheduled to teach. And they're doing it to meet the MC template. That was my thought.
Yeah.
And it's worked very well.
Tom, what I really like about that is how you've accommodated the increasing phenomenon now of individuals who have varying experiences and varying competencies, and you've enabled those who are brand new and need to get brought up to speed, a method of getting there. You've those who have had maybe intermediate experiences away, and those who were at very advanced. So I really like that that approach. Thank you for sharing that. Cynthia, any thoughts, responses to that kind of a model?
No, I mean, I think anything that can standardize it, because that is a problem. You know, instructors come and go from different universities, or some instructors may be adjuncts at several different universities. So anything like Dr. Taylor recommended at that high level to get it standardized, or just like Tom was saying, that maybe they can test themselves out from a competency-based standard. Those are all good tools that we need to take a look at.
I love the idea of the competency-based piece because they have to leave evidence behind. They can't just say, I attended this experience. They have to demonstrate by leaving a product, an artifact that someone's going to evaluate. Yes, this meets. Doug, do you have another one for us?
Well, this doesn't really come from the chat room, but I'd like to, perhaps Cynthia can go back to one of the aspects of the bleeding versus leading. There's always the risk of, you know, things not going right. And how do you deal with the risk of failure at your institution, or in general? How do you deal with that?
Well, you know, my background is computer engineering, and so I've had technology serve me well, and I've had it serve me badly. I think the thing is that you set your plan together, but, you know, like in engineering, they teach you to have a plan B and a plan C, and, you know, but you still have to go forward with an A, whether that's a leading edge solution or you wait and you adopt a solution that's been broken in a lot. But even in that case, the plan B can work on you. So, you know, you really have to think and look at it, find out what went wrong, learn from the lessons, and make whatever necessary decisions you need to make to move forward.
Cynthia, if I could have a follow-up to that, how important is it for you to have the trust and the vote of confidence from your senior director that, yes, we're trying something, you know, that he is informed as you go along, so that if there is a failure, it's because you were trying, not because of, you know, incompetence or something else. Do you know what I mean? That there's a level of trust built up there so that you're in a space where you can take those risks and try things. Is that important to you?
It's very important to me, but having the experience as a woman engineer, sometimes people don't believe you in the beginning, so you may even have to believe in yourself when no one does. But what is very important is that when you go through any of the stages, you need to keep your management aware. They need to be able to provide input and or assistance to aid in your success, or to help you in a correction on the failure. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
I got to share a quote. My supervisor at work would often tell me, amaze me, don't surprise me. You know, and I always kept that in the back of my mind. The surprises were rarely good and bad. When he was surprised, it was not. He wanted to be informed. To your point, he wanted to know what was happening. And terrific, good. Someone on Buddy says that you know, using. I jumped to another thing. Doug, can you read that one for us? I think you're on mute, Doug.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It is extremely valuable if your institution has an evaluation form that students can fill in to help guide the online programs at the school. It's hard to ignore the opinions of students. So I guess Buddy is making the very good point that, students have more influence than perhaps we do as employees.
Yeah. And Cynthia, maybe to frame a question out of that, because you mentioned during your talk and in our preparation the importance of that student input. What are some strategies that you use at Morgan State to gather that kind of insight and that input?
Well, one of the things, when I first started at Morgan State, I actually took some business cards and stood out in front of the student union and, hi, I'm Cynthia Brown-Leviste. I'm the director of Morgan Online. How can I help you? And you'd be amazed. Our students are not shy to tell you anything at any time. They will find your name on the website, even if you don't have a form, and they will let you know because they feel a part of this process. For change, but my office serves as a student liaison for online. So any problems from any one of the programs, or even if it's a student that's having a problem, they can contact me at any time for a conversation about what's going on.
Yeah. Have you done things like informal lunches or going to student groups? Any strategies like that that have been effective for you?
I have not done as much of that as I could. Actually, again, because of our environment, the graduate student group came to me because they want to be a part of online and they want to have their meetings online and they want to move to include online students.
Okay.
I need to do more of that.
So just even thinking about methods of how do you gain that input from the students, and as someone mentioned here, Buddy said they may be at the bottom of the vertical, but their action speaks volumes. And I think that's really critical. And we need to be listening to that voice. One of the things I've learned over the years is as I've, let's say, gained wisdom and experience, AKA got older, I lost the ability to see the educational system through the eyes of a student. I'm too far away, and my schooling was too long ago. So I'm always amazed at the insights that the students provide, and it was never out of a critical meanness. It was always a drive to make things better, and they, as has been said, they want to have their voice heard and responded to. Let me. I'm not going to carve out anybody's name. However, Michelle Knight, you did say earlier we often will hear from you. Michelle, any thoughts or responses to the conversation today? If you don't mind my calling on you. And I just would mention to unmute.
Oh, wow. I had to figure out where the controls were because I'm in my phone.
Okay.
I feel like there are a lot of levels involved in this. I feel like, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to ask you, Michelle, any particular challenge or barrier in your environment, no names or anything, of course, but as you're looking at implementing change in your institution, what do you see as the things that you struggle with, or the walls that you hit that you can't seem to break through in terms of advancing change?
I feel like in a lot of organizations, I guess there are a lot of silos, and different departments do things in different ways. And the way we cultivate, all of us, the instructional designers, and we're lucky enough to have many, we all cultivate relationships with our faculty members. So it's sort of like you're like a professional, like a doctor or a lawyer, in the sense that you get your clients that come back to you and you build a relationship of trust. But aside from the faculty that you can kind of influence, you don't really have, once they leave your training, you don't really have influence on them. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so you don't have, there are varying standards of quality, and there's varying standards of being able to help people, if you understand what I mean. And sometimes they don't even realize that they need the help.
Right.
So that's kind of a challenge.
So Michelle,
And we're limited in what we can do because we're kind of a union school in terms of,
Oh, okay.
you know what I mean? But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just wondering, is that, so maybe, and Cynthia, to help reflect, maybe the challenge there is, so even if you do get them in training or you do build this relationship, how do you continue to foster that connection with the faculty from the initial event ongoing, so that there is a connection there and that they feel like they belong to the community? Cynthia, have you been able to do anything along those lines that help connect those dots?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the instructional community, if we look at learning as a continuous process, training can be provided to kind of keep that connection, not to overburden them with training, but there's always something new to learn. And so there's an opportunity to keep connection between people who design the instructional design and people who need to learn. This environment that we use for online is continuously growing, from student tools to instructor tools. There's always something new that you can use, and that's an opportunity to keep people connected.
But I guess how do you hook them? I mean, because, faculty members are busy, and I like to value their time.
Uh-huh. Right. Well, I mean,
I do have ones that I have a sphere of influence, and we really talk. And whenever they have like an issue or want to try something new, I'm the first person they call. But you can't cultivate that with everyone, unfortunately. And some people, you know what I mean, they're kind of resistant to it. It's like they've done the training and so bye.
Right. Right. And I can't claim to have any solid answers, but I mean, I think there are some things we may want to think about. Because one of the things that we've looked at in terms of, bringing them back, because again, their training can't stop cold. You may have done a wonderful job of teaching them how to create that class, but as soon as you get done teaching them, another few weeks, months go by, and there's something new that could drastically impact the way that they teach. So, the only thing I know is, again, offering some of those courses, but also too, one of the ways that we were able to really break through was to say that our instructors, that if you take this QM training, because there was resistance at the beginning to any of it and teaching online, if you take this QM training, we want you to understand that we've invested into you professionally, because that QM certificate travels to thousands of schools worldwide. It doesn't just stop with us learning there. And another thing that we're looking at is these digital badging that people can pull into their electronic resumes and things like that to say, okay, you are proficient at this unit of knowledge. But that's pretty much all that I have in terms of trying to keep them involved. There may be some other tools if people have, please share.
I think that it's really important to let people know that you're there to help them, whatever part of the organization you're in, whatever role you play. Reaching out to people and saying, hey, look, what are your biggest needs and how can I help you overcome those? Because people would rather have you solve their problems than tell them what they have to do.
Oh yeah, no, I welcome solving their problems. That's what I'm here for. But some of them, they have problems, and they don't reach out. You know what I mean? Or they reach out, and then it's really, by the time they reach out, it's really a huge problem.
So Michelle, part of the challenge there is in that keeping a connecting point with those faculty members is, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking it really becomes a marketing issue. You know, how do you continually sort of keep in front of them? You know, changes to our systems, and oh, by the way, and it's two things in my mind: it's marketing, and as Cynthia said, it's also establishing the added value for them of the participation, letting them know that this QM certificate carries with you, or participation in this program is something you can take. But it becomes a whole new dimension to instructional design, right? Now we're also sort of trying to build that community and draw them into it, where they do want to keep active and they recognize you're a resource to help solve their problem, to Doug's point. Yeah. You know, one of the things, Cynthia, that really kind of hit me in the head as you were going through your slides was this. By the way, Michelle, thank you so much for responding, and I'm sorry for calling you on the spot, but you did say that in the beginning that you were good, and I appreciated your input. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cynthia, I wanted to go back to that comment about understanding the environment. You said, you know, everything you talked about in recognizing opportunities, understanding your place in the system, and so forth, is so critical for a leader to be, I don't know, it was like a map in my mind. You create this map of all of these different spheres of influences and domains. And as a leader, you're continually informing that and framing that and monitoring that. And you're very active in building that. It's not something you do passively where you sit back and wait for things to happen. It sounds like you're constantly out there gathering information and filling in the details of that map.
Yeah, and I mean, it started early. I mean, I went on the Cynthia tour when I first got here. Like I said, I stood in the square with students. Hi, I'm Cynthia. I'm the director of Morgan Online. How can I help you? And boy, did they tell me. I went and I actually visited all of the departments, and I still do routine visits with the departments to talk with them, try to learn what the issues are, to see where I help. That's just like today. I just got an email because, you know, we're looking at our technologies because we do dissertation defenses online, you know, because we have an online doctoral program, you know, well, what do we do if this doesn't work? What does we do? So it's about keeping the conversation going all the time, but it is also about learning your place. Initially, I was very squirrely, and I had to be reined in because if you don't understand the management structure, then it just doesn't, you know, work for you. I previously did project management before, where not only do you get the tasks, you get the people, you get the money, and you get the authority. So this is my very first position in which I got a little money. It's not bad. And I got a position, but I did not get authority. So learning how to build relationships and learning how to make people or help people go forward, you know, relationally versus I rule you. You just need to do this.
Yes. Thank you. I have one final question in my mind, but I first want to turn to our participants and see if there's any other thoughts or input. Doug, Wendy, I'm seeing Christy online. Anyone else with a thought or question for Cynthia? Okay, so hearing none, I'm going to give you my last one. So thank you, Cynthia, before I forget. Thank you for taking the time to frame this out with us and share from your experiences. It's been a pleasure working with you, and you obviously have got a good handle. I know you said earlier to me that you're constantly learning and growing in this role as well. But my final question has to do with culture. How important is it for you as a learner in advancing and implementing change is understanding the culture of the institution?
I think it's very important. I think dealing even down at department to department level, you see different learning styles. So I can say one thing to one department and it's taken differently the other. It's kind of interesting because you have to learn what what your environment is to be able to survive in your environment. What is it made of? What is the leadership like? What are the leadership patterns? How do you fit into that? And, you know, how you can move forward. So you do have to make strategies, you know, to learn your environment and learn how you're going to be able to move forward in it to be successful.
And every culture, I would imagine, from institution or organization to organization is different.
Right.
And spending the time to absorb that and understand that is an important part.
Right. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Maurice.
Can I just wanted to add a point. So I think there's the internal culture that you have to master, but I would be remiss if I didn't say how important it is to sort of molding and changing that culture with Maryland Online, the IEOL, all of the professional organizations, and in particular in this case, I do have to say how important Maryland Online is, because you can't just stay in that culture. I mean, you got to master it, but it's all about leading the changes. And so things like being able to go to leaders like Penn State Global Campus, Maryland Online, that helps Cynthia and myself when we talk to members of the community. That helps change that culture. We wouldn't have gotten the changes in online education. It's needed online, Penn State Global Campus, OLC, to say, look, what we're talking about here is the future, notwithstanding the way we do things at Morgan.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Maurice. Cynthia, I'm going to go back and say thank you to you, and thank you to Morgan State for making your time available. It's just been it's been marvelous. On that last point that Dr. Taylor made, it reminded me again of the power of this network, of the MOL system of MOLLI. If you've not heard about or participated in MOLLI and you want to consider joining a network of professionals, and I wouldn't say just emerging professionals, I would say we have a range of individuals who want to come together, share ideas, share strategies, have personal growth, and really join a terrific group of individuals. I'd ask you to consider MOLLI. So, Doug, Wendy, any final comments?
Well, I really appreciate everyone coming today, and I will say that we're going to be looking for other opportunities to provide webinars, and so we will be sending out information on that through our normal channels. And our big project, of course, coming up is going to be the MOLLI Institute, which is in June. So if you have an interest in expanding your leadership skills and competencies and learning more about how to be a more effective leader, consider coming into MOLLI.
Terrific. Thank you, Doug. Wendy, any final comments?
This has been terrific, and I really want to thank Cynthia and Maurice and Larry and Doug, everyone who's contributed to this. I hope it was worthwhile, and we will. I will go ahead and send the link. I've already confessed I'm still learning Zoom, but I can send the link to the group in case you want to share it with anyone else.
Terrific.
For those who weren't able to finish, they can watch the end of it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, thank you for the participants being with us. And remember, spring is just right around the corner. We can hope.
Thank you, Larry.
Take care. Thank you, Julie. Take care, all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.